A long time ago, I made a video exploring the philosophy of Zahir, the villain from Season 3 of Legend of Korra, explaining why he might want to kill the Avatar. Give me a second. This one just won't shut up, so I'm just gonna hold him for a bit. Explaining why Zahir might want to kill the Avatar. It's essentially the Superman question.
But what happens if the next Superman becomes a terrorist?
And forgive me for using anything from Suicide Squad, I'm still suffering flashbacks from that terrible exposition.
I would advise not getting killed by her. Her sword traps the souls of its victims.
Zahir believed that the Avatar was given undeserved authority, and by killing her, he was guarding against the Avatar becoming tyrannical. The most common response I seemed to get to this argument was that, but Tim, the Avatar can't be evil because of Raava, the spirit of goodness. And this got me thinking, is the Avatar inherently good? Are they capable of being evil? It's a strange idea. I mean, the writers would never ever be so stupid as to write a storyline where a dark Avatar was involved. But this being the last video of the year, I thought I would make it a banger. So we're gonna nail this down to 3 questions. 1. What do we mean by evil in the Avatar world? 2. Is Raava actually inherently good? And 3. Even if she is, can Raava moderate how the Avatar acts? So, first question. Our conventional understanding of morality as a binary choice between good and evil, somewhat rooted in Christian theology, doesn't quite fit within the world and lore of Avatar. And this will be no surprise given how much we know it draws on Eastern philosophy and religion, which does have some binary morality, but it's not quite as heavy as it is in Western philosophy. And there are moral codes in the Avatar world, but they're often rooted in stoicism or personal spirituality, less so than divine universal doctrine.
The monks always taught me that all life is sacred. I know, I'm even a vegetarian. And I've only had to use violence for necessary defense. But the monks taught me that I had to detach myself from the world so my spirit could be free.
But even these principles espoused by characters like Aang aren't moral imperatives for everyone. They're not the only and one way to live a truly moral life. In fact, Avatar Yang Chen points out that living that way for the Avatar would be immoral.
But this isn't about you. This is about the world. Because your sole duty is to the world. Do whatever it takes to protect the world.
In other words, it's not a universal law. Now, the Avatar might be an exception, but even so, the writers never present the nomadic moral code as the one moral way to live one's life. Instead, it's presented as one method towards personal enlightenment. And enlightenment itself doesn't make you virtuous. Zahir achieved the highest level of detachment by letting go of all his earthly tethers and flying. But if you're setting his morality as the high bar, then maybe we should have a talk about what you're considering good and evil in the first place. Beyond this, just like in our world, morals vary from nation to nation. Like the Fire Nation has strict codes of conduct around loyalty and
my honor!
But none of these moral codes are treated as coming from a divine, omniscient doctrine. In fact, they're all treated as kind of equally valid and equally true. And in the story, they're portrayed as far more cultural. Fundamentally, across the story, there's no top-down declaration of right and wrong, no omniscient, omnipotent being that can declare the moral code for everyone, and no natural law that we know is true. So the Avatar can't be objectively good or evil, at least not in those terms. Question number 2. Let's say that Raava could influence the Avatar's morality, that she could stop the Avatar from acting in a way that wouldn't be in accordance with the principles of her being. Does Raava represent pure goodness or moral spirituality? Well, at the end of Beginnings Part 2, we learn that Wan and Raava fused together to become the first Avatar. Because of this, some people are under the impression that the Avatar is inherently good because Raava is inherently good. And thus Zahir must be wrong that the Avatar could ever become tyrannical or evil. But the first point is this. The Avatar has been born into each of these 4 cultures over and over, each with varying morals, often contradicting morals, and they have often acted in accordance with these changing morals, the morals that they were born into. Like Aang follows the nomadic code because he was born an Airbender, while Kyoshi followed a strict utilitarian code more akin to an Earthbender. This must mean that if Raava does represent pure moral goodness, then it's a broad enough morality to encompass all of these different, often contradicting moralities across different cultures, giving us, and thus the Avatar, very little definition in terms of what is good or evil. So to build on this, the actual quote that we're given in the series is this:
He is the force of darkness and chaos. I am the force of light and peace.
And the question that I've been left asking is peace inherently good? Well, no, not necessarily. Peace could mean the suppression of opposing political views. It could mean the segregation of society along the lines of race, sex, wealth, or who likes fruitcake and who doesn't. All in the name of stability and peace. Though there would be no one in the part of the city that likes fruitcake. If you do like fruitcake, go down as the comments and give me your honest defense of that hideous abomination. The concept of peace says everything about the ends of society, but nothing about the means, which can be destructive, tyrannical, or evil, to use the word lightly. And the show also treats both Raava and Vaatu as equally important parts of the universe.
Since the beginning of time, we have battled over the fate of this world. I have kept darkness under control and the world in balance.
The world hasn't been in balance because the force of light and peace has been winning, but because the forces of peace and chaos have been fighting. They've been equal, they have been in balance with one another. What that tells us is that when either party gets too powerful, it is a bad thing. We see that when Vaatu gains too much control, the world itself becomes darker and more filled with chaos. Given that it's important that they remain equal, the inverse of this would be that if Raava gained too much power, there would be harmful effects on the world as well. The spread of too much order and peace could mean the loss of individuality or a rise in apathy. And I use the word order because the opposite of chaos is also order, and I think that has something to do with her being. Vaatu might have been imprisoned in the Tree of Time, but he was still just as strong as Raava. How do we know this? Well, we see if one gets more powerful than the other, then the other shrinks and loses magical power. Hence why Raava ended up looking like a pathetic 6-year-old's kite. And the understanding of both Raava and Vaatu as neither inherently good nor inherently bad also fits better with the Taoist principles that we know the show regularly draws upon.
One cannot exist without the other. He cannot destroy light any more than I can destroy darkness.
Neither are inherently good, because Raava even has a part of Vaatu inside of her.
Darkness will grow inside me until he emerges again.
And in much the same way, Vaatu has a part of Raava inside of him. They are equally opposite and dependent on one another. Much like how yin and yang represent life and death, light and dark, the sun and the moon, order and chaos, the world needs both Raava and Vaatu to survive.
But Tim, Raava is also the spirit of light and Vaatu is the spirit of darkness.
Quite right, you sheep-slaughtering menace. Yeah, so people who have watched my channel for a long time will know that I don't focus on the criticisms of Legend of Korra much. Lots of other YouTubers have done plenty of that, somewhat obsessively and blindly at times, but I try to keep a more positive edge to my channel and discuss the stuff that I know I love and the fandom loves. But I'm going to go into one criticism here because it's very relevant to the discussion. I do personally have a big problem with Raava and Vaatu's existence, or at least how they were written. Season 2 of Legend of Korra not only demystified the origins of the Avatar, which I've always felt would have been best kept left mysterious, but the story of Raava and Vaatu can also be easily read as imposing a dualistic, moral binary theology on the show that was never there before. And for good reason. In The Last Airbender, there were plenty of old, ancient, and fundamental spirits, but none of them were ever inherently good or evil forces in the world. And the designs for Raava and Vaatu being white and blue and red and black with a softer feminine voice and an evil, rumbly male voice who can turn beautiful creatures into violent demons of darkness, it can be easily read as that dichotomous view of morality, introducing an objectively good thing and an objectively bad thing. Which to me takes away from that beautiful ancient complexity that we got in The Last Airbender, particularly in regards to the spirit world. And it's because of this that I choose to interpret the more ambiguous terms of light and dark, not as meaning good and evil, but associating them more with the terms of peace and chaos that we have been given, which do have a more exact definition, and both peace and chaos have their place under the sun, to draw on Ecclesiastes. Ultimately, it wouldn't fit within the lore of the Avatar world to have Raava and Vaatu being the good and evil spirits of the universe, so I try to come up with an interpretation that better fits within that broader scheme, that broader understanding. And with this understanding of morality in the Avatar world and the inexact morality of Raava, the prospect of an Avatar acting tyrannically isn't just a hypothetical anymore. It becomes a believable reality if the individual has a spirit driven towards peace above all, even if that means oppressing others. Now, we have never had a Nazi Avatar before, that we know of, but let's play today's game. The Avatar? More like the Evil Tar. Am I not funny? No, you have to have a really high IQ to understand my sense of humor. First up, Avatar Kuruk. A stunningly good-looking young man with a fiancée with a stunningly gorgeous— oh my gosh, she has no face! Kuruk as an avatar was known to be apathetic. He didn't care enough about the things going on in the world.
People seemed to work out their own problems, and there was peace and good times in the world.
I lost the woman I loved to code. If I had been more attentive and more active.
Second up on today's lineup, we have Avatar Roku, who you might know as Avatar Smoku. Ooh, gosh, I think I hurt myself with my own joke. Roku refused to act, even when he knew the risk that Fire Lord Sozin posed. He forgave him when Sozin had already invaded a foreign nation, probably killed people, probably ripped people from their families.
I'm letting you go in the name of our past friendship. I'm sparing you, Sozin.
You know, I'm not sure I'd be able to forgive my friends if they invaded a foreign nation. Depends if it was Australia. Those guys deserve to be invaded by our mighty New Zealand Navy, currently comprised of 6 sheep in a boat and a piece of driftwood. Now, this doesn't make Avatar Roku immoral, but it does show us that even the most experienced and powerful avatars are easily affected by personal experiences and emotions, that they can be driven to make decisions along those lines. They are certainly not impartial, and they could be motivated to anything if they felt emotionally that it would achieve peace. And our third contender for tonight, we have Avatar Korra. And perhaps the most shocking example. So, in Civil Wars Part 1 and 2, we see her support the occupation of the Southern Water Tribe by the Northern Water Tribe for a long time, even in the removal of the government of the Southern Water Tribe and the suppression of its peoples. And the thing is that she only changes her mind when she realizes Unalaq orchestrated the imprisonment of her parents. In other words, the Avatar was not naturally opposed to removing sovereignty and the identity of a people group. She did so in the name of order and unity.
I am their chief. I'm uniting, not invading.
I know, but I'm just afraid if something doesn't change, there could be a civil war.
This example is only a couple of steps removed from the Avatar imposing their personal will with violence, if only in the name of peace and unity. If they can do this, then they can kill who they see as an oppressive leader and take power themselves in the name of peace. They can lead populist revolutions where they are the central figure. They can take down governments in hope of a regime change, or changing the structural way that society is run, the way resources are organized. And this becomes even clearer in the example of Avatar Kyoshi, otherwise known as Kyoshi has big boots and you know what they say about women with big boots.
Technically, he fell to his own doom because he was too stubborn to get out of the way. But you didn't really kill Shin.
I would have done whatever it took to stop Chin. Personally, I don't really see the difference.
Confronted with the prospect that she murdered, she's just like, you what, mate? I'll do it again, I swear on me mum. Kyoshi took out a popular political figure without a qualm when it came to protecting her own. One that was even more popular than the Earth King at the time, and even hundreds of years later retained a following. Qin conquered most of the Earth Kingdom, but he was well loved by the people, and those in Ba Sing Se saw him as a liberator, not a conqueror, from the oppression of the Earth King. Obviously Qin wasn't entirely good, many saw him as a tyrant as well.
Qin was expanding his army to all corners of the continent. I killed Qin the Conqueror, a horrible tyrant.
Those sort of sentiments, it was mixed, it wasn't black and white. And if the Avatar is willing and able to do this, then what's to stop them killing important, even positive leaders and politicians who threaten their interests? The Avatar has the capability to draw lines in the sand wherever they want, against whoever they want. And they have the motivation to do it. But even so, even if Raava was the personification of everything good and right in the world, if she was cookie dough and mishka and fireworks that I can buy at a store and own personally and let off and... Sorry, I just really like fireworks. Can Raava even control, moderate, or influence the Avatar's actions or morality? Because the problem is, I'm not personally sure that there is much evidence to suggest that Raava can do that. There is no instance in the series where we know that Raava actively interferes with the Avatar's actions, stopping them acting a certain way. In fact, when Korra was pinned down by Unalaq, it was only with the power of the Avatar state that she could escape. But Raava couldn't activate it by herself.
Raava, you are the Avatar. Do not give in to 10,000 years of darkness.
Raava could encourage and talk to the Avatar, but she couldn't make the Avatar do anything. The Avatar themselves has to choose to do it. And Raava only ever talks in the sense that the agency is all with the Avatar, that she's really just along for the ride. And by all indications, Korra is the first Avatar in a long time to have any meaningful relationship with Raava at all, though Kuruk does know Raava's name, which does suggest that he at least met her at some point, while the other avatars only ever refer to her as the Avatar Spirit, meaning they might be vaguely aware, but they don't have any personal connection to her.
Find Raava.
And if most avatars don't even know about her, then she certainly couldn't have influenced them overtly. And even if Raava does passively affect how the Avatar thinks and acts, then we've already addressed how she allows killing, supporting civil wars, taking out world leaders, and giving a pass to tyrants that you've known since childhood. So can the Avatar be evil? Well, they can certainly act tyrannically, they can oppress others, they can kill with impunity, and they can disregard cultural norms and human rights, I guess. And even if they were affected by Raava, then they would have the motivation to do so, all concerned with the ends of peace and not how they get there. But Christmas is upon us, and so from the bottom of both Supreme Leader Mishka and my hearts, I want to say Merry Christmas. But I also want to say, thank you. This has been an incredible year for me. We have tripled in size since February or January to 300,000, which is incredible. But also, I kind of want to say that, I'm very lucky to be in the position that I am, and I want to encourage you that if you do have a few dollars to spare, to give it to someone, donate it to people who don't have much around Christmas time, people who aren't going to get gifts, people who might even not have Christmas dinner. There are groups around everywhere that do this sort of thing, and I'm sure it would mean a lot to them, even if you don't get to see the smile on their faces. We spend a lot on ourselves and on those close to us around this period, but let's not forgive those who don't have anyone to do that at all. I'm taking a break until January in 2019, but I'll be back with lots of really exciting stuff. There were so many things, like a video on the philosophy of Blade Runner 2049 that I really wanted to do, but never quite got around to it. So you'll see all of that next year, hopefully. And while this is my last kind of lore-focused video, I have decided to put out one more video, which will just be a beautiful clip of this baby. But until then, stay nerdy, and I will see you next year.